Hey, this is Michael Cleef again at TechEd. We're on day 2. I'm just spending some time with the team on Windows 7 migration. Today with me I've got Mr. Townsend, who's going to talk a little bit about Windows 7 migration, XP to Windows 7. And after that we're going to be spending some time with James Simpson, and he's going to talk about Office migration. But Mr. Townsend, far away.
Thanks very much. So just wanted to run you through a couple of things that we've been speaking to a number of customers today about. Lots of people asking about how we can enable their Windows 7 migration. So predominantly we've been talking to them about our UV platform and about how using our context-aware platform, we're actually able to deal with this idea of personalization and about how we can actually move a user, not migrate a user, from Windows XP to Windows 7. So we're just going to run through a very quick demonstration here. We're going to fire up a Windows XP machine. And on that Windows XP machine, we're just going to go through and we're going to personalize some applications. So we're going to personalize Microsoft Excel, and we're going to personalize Adobe Reader. So we're going to go into Excel, we're going to change the look and feel of that application. We're going to give it a personality. So very similar to what a user would have been doing for the last number of years on their Windows XP environment, setting applications up as they like to use them, setting the desktop up in a fashion that is personal to them. So James is just moving some toolbars around there and changing the look and feel. When we close those applications down, AppSense is actually going to be capturing that personalization and saving it to a Microsoft SQL database. It's a 3-tier architecture, so it's very, very scalable, up to tens of thousands of users. That information's now gone back to the database, which means that the data is now abstracted away from the application and the operating system. We're going to jump across to a Windows 7 machine, and without logging on and logging off again, we are going to run that application, and in real time we're going to stream down those personalization settings down to those two applications. An AppV version of Adobe Reader is running, just to show that we can go from native to AppV as well. And as you can see, both the personality in Excel is carried across. Just check the username there is me, good. And also we can see the toolbars there in Adobe. So two very, very simple examples of how we have been able to capture personalization from a Windows XP machine, store it centrally, and then reapply that to a Windows 7 machine. We've also been talking about the ongoing management for an organization once they've got to Windows 7, because that's just as important. So we've also been talking to them about, okay, so how can you better manage a user once you get to Windows 7? And to do that, we've actually been closing the applications down, and we've been going into our support console and showing how we snapshot on a per user, per application basis, and then demonstrating how we can roll back. So now we've got into web-based console. You can see here we've got a list of the applications that AppSense is managing. So these are the applications that we have captured from a Windows XP environment and moved across to that Windows 7 environment. But now we're on that Windows 7 environment, we're now going to go into Office 2010. We can see that we've had a number of snapshots taken over the course of the last week or month, depending on usage, and we're now going to roll back that application to a known good state. So we're actually going to revert Excel back to the state it was in at the start of this demonstration. So no personality, no Simon included in the username, change back the colors, and hopefully when we now go back to a Windows 7 machine, we launch Excel, and as you can see, that personalization has now gone back to its default state. There is, if we just nip into the EM policy console, the last thing I want to touch on is, it's a misconception that personalization is the key to a successful Windows 7 migration. What you tend to find is that a lot of the personalization, or at least half of that personalization on a Windows XP machine, has actually been set by the IT department themselves. It's been set by logon scripts, by batch files, the fact that the user's got printers and drive mappings, for instance. They're not necessarily been set by the user, been set by IT policy. So a lot of the time as well, if we just take a look at the EM policy console and open up one of those configs, we've been talking people through how Environment Manager and the AppSense platform can actually start to replace those logon scripts and improve and, more importantly, optimize the logon process for a Windows 7 environment as well.
It's fantastic. So in a second, we'll just have James talk a bit about Office migration, because while Simon spent some time talking about, within the same version migration, James has actually been doing some very clever work. James is right here. Been doing some very clever work with interversion Office migration, which we've never really been able to do before. So let's just spend some time going over that in a little bit more detail.
Hi, this is Jason Southern from AppSense. Here we are at day 3 of TechEd. And what we're going to do now is take a look at some demonstrations of Office migration and Office transitions. I've got James Simpson here, who's one of our pre-sales engineers, and he's going to run through a couple of visual demonstrations of how AppSense can help with migration between different Office versions. So, James, over to you.
Okay, let's have a look at Office 2003 as we start. We can take some visual pieces here, and we could change the zoom level, for example. We could then add some hidden characters, and we could also move in and decide and show some text boundaries. Now, as a user, I want to move these settings to any application that I use, or any version of Office that I decide to use. If I close this application down, I now want to make this work anywhere. So let's move to Office 2007, and I can open up Word. And what you'll find is that everything that we've just set has now moved over as well. So if I make some more changes that are visual to this one as well, I can change the zoom level again and leave certain things set. And I can close these down, and now I can move into Office 2010. And you'll see that those settings have also moved into here as well. So we can take this a little bit further. We can actually start to make these changes inside Office 2010. But for some reason today, once I made these changes, I now need to fall back to Office 2003. So I go back to Office 2003, and I can open that up, and you can see all the changes have flowed back to here as well. So we don't just go up in a sequential step, we can switch between all different versions of Office. What you can see now is that if I open every single one of these Office applications, they are all the same. And that's how we manage migrations and upgrading of Office and settings moving between all of them.